Welcome back. Pregame.tv breaking down Saturday college football action. Elimination playoff game early. Auburn Tigers travel to Ole Miss. Bo Wallace and company off their first loss. Big game. Ole Miss is laying 2. The total is 51. Bryan Leonard, who wins this game?
We will see on Saturday, but you know it's interesting. We're taping on Tuesday here, and they just came out with the Final Four. What they're calling that thing?
I don't even know who they picked. Who was in the Final Four?
Well, I believe Cade, our producer, said that it was Florida State,
shocker,
Mississippi. That was a shocker to me after they lost. Auburn. And
Mississippi
State. Okay.
Yeah, well, they're undefeated. They got to be in there.
So you got 3 of the teams.
Did we miss one, Cade? All right. Yep.
Yeah. So that was it. I was really surprised that after Mississippi lost, because the later in the season that you lose, teams to mean more. But there was a lot of talk going in that Marshall would be one of the teams that would surprise people and make it.
There's no talk about Marshall.
I
will give you
ESPN put out something the other day, and they talked about what they're going to look at, and they said Marshall was one of the teams that led in this one category, and we're thinking Marshall. All you got to do is look at your power ratings.
It's a good movie. Don't get me wrong, and good people from West Virginia, but they're going to the NIT.
Yeah, they're not even listed in the top 25. So, but it was interesting. But I'm glad that even after a loss, they realized that Mississippi's a very good team. And that's the way it should be. I mean, if 3 teams can win with the SEC, I don't care as long as it's 3 of the 4 best teams in the country.
I agree wholeheartedly. This whole you got to win your conference crap. It's like, look, Connecticut national championship in basketball. Who cares if you win your conference? So let's take the team that has a solid body of work and is one of the 4 best teams. Now, I agree you can have the best team could have 2 losses, and then they don't get in. I'm sorry. But for the most part, if you've got a tiebreaker, I'm a big believer. Get on the phone, call Vegas. If you've got a bunch of 11-1 teams, and take the team, as long as you didn't play complete cupcakes, that it has the highest power rating. It's a good tiebreaker.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier today. All they had to do, instead of getting the committees together, just call Las Vegas and get the power ratings and wherever the top 4 power rating teams are. They'll never do that. Hell, if over.
Well, but they shouldn't do that, because that's not fair, because it isn't. The Final Four is not who the 4 best teams are. It's who has had the best body of work. Because you could certainly say, hey, you got an example in NCAA basketball. Kentucky was an 8 seed. Maybe they should have been a 5 seed. But you can't, even though they're one of the 8 best teams, you can't give them a number 2 seed after a crappy year they've had. You've got to count the year. So if you have a team that you have rated number as the strongest team, and they lose 2 games by 1 point and 2 points, they're out of it. We're not going to put them in the Final Four, even though we may well still have them as the highest power rating team.
I agree mostly on that, I would say. If
Oregon loses another game, I mean, I think everyone's going to well, maybe not everyone, but if Oregon kills everyone but loses 1 game by 1 point, they're still going to be out of the mix, even though they would be.
I'm not even sure that they're one of the top 5.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Alabama's a better example. If Alabama loses 1 more game by 2 points, they're out, even though they're clearly in the top 4 power rating. I mean, you look at their loss to Ole Miss. Come on, they're on the road. They have the lead 14-3 at half, and just things happen. I did want to ask you about Ole Miss. I don't know, did you catch the game against LSU at the end?
That's what I'm going to talk about.
I hate the postmortem where we wait to see what happens, and then, how could he throw to the end zone instead of kicking the 47-yard field goal? People, did you ever watch a football game before? Guess what college kickers do? They miss 45-yard field goals. That's all they do. It's crazy to me that people are so upset that they took a shot. And the best evidence I can give, if you have LSU on the money line and you're up 3, what do you want Ole Miss to do? Get your kicker out there and try your 47-yarder. If he makes it, and then you got to win in overtime. The last thing you want to do. The second they're throwing deep towards the end zone, you're like, oh my God, I could lose. I don't know about you, Brian, but that's how I felt. And I had LSU.
Yeah, I had Penn State the other night, and I don't know why they didn't go for it in regulation. You go into overtime. The other team's got better talent than you do. They've been there before. You don't want to go into overtime. You got to try to win in regulation. But I'm ready to make this official whenever you are.
Let's do it. We're running along. Very good.
All right, I was on Mississippi in that game we just talked about in LSU last week, and it didn't come down to the offensive part. It was the defensive part. LSU goes 95 yards on this Mississippi defense and scores what turned out to be the game-winning touchdown. I watched that game, and that was the most physically demanding game I've seen in college football in a long time. High expectations down there in LSU. This is a team with a lot of young talent that's starting to play ball. Extremely physical game. That took everything out of Mississippi. I know this year's a little bit different. You don't have the heartbreak that you had before, the bubble burst type of thing, because now you could lose one game and you could still get back into it. But so much came out of Mississippi in that game, as opposed to Auburn, who plays a South Carolina team. I happen to think they looked past South Carolina a little bit, and you can't blame them for it. But that was one of those games that went up and down, not nearly as physical, not nearly as taxing. And you have a South Carolina team, they put everything into that game. They had 5 times they went for it on 4th down, made it all 5 times. They picked up an onside kick. South Carolina did everything they could to compete in that game, and they still lose. Auburn had an easy game physically compared to what Mississippi has had. I like this Mississippi team. I can't see them, how they're coming back this week. I like Auburn in this game. Obviously, at the 2, you play them on the money line. I think it's going to come down to that. When you take a look at the power ratings, Mississippi's a little bit better football team. I like Mississippi. Once again, the situation and the physicality of that. It's not like Mississippi had the one game they've had to be physical with. Look at their schedule. They've been surprising a lot of people. I just don't see how they're going to win this game. I'll take Auburn, the team, on the money line on the road.
I think it's an excellent pick. I actually think Auburn is better anyways. And the bottom line is LSU couldn't throw the ball a lick. And the fact that they could go 95 yards, I can't blame Ole Miss's defense for losing a game where they shut down LSU the entire game. But that was, like you said, it was so physical, it was so tough. And now on top of it, Ole Miss's coach is getting second-guess Hugh Freeze for his communication with the quarterback and what they were doing with Bo Wallace. And I don't think they did anything wrong. Hey, someone's got to win the game, someone's got to lose the game. And they tried to win, but they're getting second guess. Now they'll probably be too conservative. They'll probably go for field goals instead of going for the touchdowns. I think Auburn will win the game. I think Auburn is the true contender. And I think Ole Miss will come out. They're going to lose the Egg Bowl also. I think they're going to come out with 3 losses. And all these early wins and that win against Alabama will be forgotten like tears in rain.
Is that a movie reference or a song
reference to Blade Runner, if you want to go ahead.
You
and
knew
take
it was
a look at
coming.
that. Tears in Rain, forgotten like tears in rain. Stay with us. We're going to be breaking out how we are going to be winning in the NBA this coming year and some of the strategies we're going to employ. Pregame.tv. Isn't that a great line? All of it.